This is a FarmHer special presentation from the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show, hosted by Janie Johnson and Kirby Schnorr.
Well, we're out here at Orlando, Florida for the National Cattlemen's Beef Association Convention, CattleCon. It's great. We have three wonderful, fabulous ladies all involved with the Florida Cattlemen's Associations, served on several boards, just beef producers, heavily influencing our industry. So thank you so much for being with us today, ladies. And my co-host over here, Janie Johnson.
Yes, excited to be here. My very first trip to NCBA, but I'm excited to kick off day one to get to meet each one of you guys. We want to get introductions to tell people about your background. So Deborah, maybe we start with you.
Okay. I forgot the microphone, but I'm Deborah Whaley, and I live in Osceola County, Florida, which is just the county next door. And I am married into the cattle ranching of Florida. My husband is, we're now in 7 generations. So it's a beef cow-calf operation, and we also have purebred Brahman cattle. And recently, 2019, my husband's grandfather was recognized in Houston, Texas as one of the top 10 breeders in the nation whose family is still in existence of the purebred Brahman breed. So we're very proud of that, to be included in that category. So thank you all for coming, and so happy to be here.
Wow, that's so impressive just to hear that. And Sarah, tell us your background.
Well, my background is I came from the Midwest and moved to Florida in 1970, but we had ranching operations in California, then Fallon, Nevada, and then Alamosa, Colorado, and then to Florida. I was in ranching at Buck Island Ranch until the mid-90s, and then left the ranch and went to work for Likes Brothers, one of the 2 largest cattle operations in the state, for 22 years, and now am retired and devoting all of my time to different organizations that cattle industry is involved in, and I'm more busy now than when I was working.
Wow, you've spanned the entire country. So impressive. And then, Rebecca, I know you're the president of the Florida Cattlewomen's, but tell us about all your background and where you got started.
Well, my name is Rebecca Finley, and I was born and raised in the Reedy Creek Swamp in western Osceola County, Deborah's County as well. I'm a 6th generation cattle family member. I have 3 kids and 8 grandkids and 1 great-grandson, and everybody lives on the ranch or near it. It's a family-run operation. When Disney came in, then we kind of expanded over to Polk County, and I'm just very honored to be president of Florida Cattlewomen, and it's a great honor to work with these women that have such legacies and such history behind them in the cattle industry. And these ladies are spot on. They know what they're doing, so it's a great honor to serve them and lead them at this time.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely. Well, very impressive women, like we said, strong ties to the cattle industry, the beef business. And that is why we're here, right, at NCBA. Deborah, I want you to touch on that a little bit more and talk about the next few days and what we're going to experience here being at NCBA.
Well, hopefully we will get to meet new friends from across the nation. That's what I love to do, and meet cattlemen and cattlewomen from across this nation and share ideas that we don't experience here in Florida, and hear how their living is across the nation as well in, let's say, California, like where you're from. So it's just so different. And I would really like to listen to a lot of the legislative things that's going on and the meetings that we're having, and basically just have a great time and network and socialize and have fun here in Florida.
I love that you bring up the network, because that's what Kirby and I are here for. She's the host of FarmHer. I'm the host of RanchHer. We're all about celebrating women in agriculture and getting to see all 3 of you guys. You're very much friends. You know a lot of women. Sarah, what are some of the women like that ranch in the state of Florida?
Anyone who is in ranching in the state of Florida has to have a very strong constitution, because we never know what we are going to run into from one day to the next. Matter of fact, you never know what's going to happen 1 minute to the next, especially when you're gathering cattle in a large pasture, whether you're in the cow pens, and this Brahmin-influenced animal decides that it's going to go where it wants to go, and it usually does. So it's one of those things that no matter what we plan for, we never have a boring day when you're in the ag business, cattle ranching in Florida.
I think that's also what makes ranching intriguing to outsiders, right? They're like, man, they're never bored. And for the people inside the business, they're like, woo, we don't even know what that word means. We are not bored, right? Rebecca, you gave us some pins that Janie, I know, has over there, and she wanted to ask you about those because the slogan on them is really neat. But serving as the president this year, kind of talk about your mission, your vision, and the things that you see being implemented in 2024.
Thank you. Good question. My motto this year was all inside the same fence. And when I adopted that, it was like it seemed that we were straying away from different things, and we needed to bring it all back in. And so we all like it when the cows are all inside the same fence and we don't have to go fix fence and whatever. But it takes fixing fences sometimes to bring different groups and all back together again. We here in Florida, we have a great relationship between Florida cattle women and Florida cattle men. All of us here are members of Florida Cattlemen as well. Sarah sits on the Florida Beef Council Board, on the Florida Cattlemen's Foundation. She sits on a lot of those committees. As she said, that's her life, and she's dedicated it to it. I sit on the Florida Beef Council as president of Florida Cattlewomen. But we also took the show on the road this year, and if I'm going too much, you let me know. We also took the show on the road this year, and we set up a 10-by-10 tent for Florida Cattlewomen. And Florida Cattlemen jumped in and said, well, if you're going, take some of our stuff. And Florida Beef Council jumped in and they said, if you're going, take some of our stuff. So we represented all three of them, all inside the same fence. You know, it came to fruition. It was a dream. It came to fruition, and it's great to see that happening, that we can all work together and not as separate entities. So that was a big dream of mine this year, to do that and get it out there. And we've been everywhere from North Florida. We recently went to West Palm Beach. So it's a long distance. It's kind of like the panhandle of Texas. It's a long way from one end to the other. Well, so that's it.
That really leads me to my next question, and I think all three of you can answer this. Of course, you all have your own ranches. You're very involved. That's busy enough. That's enough work as it is. Why was it important for all three of you to go beyond that and to work in Florida Cattlewomen and to get involved outside of your personal ranch?
Because Florida Cattlewomen have always been the promoters. The cattlemen's, even though women are cattlemen as well, they grow it. But it's always been up to us to sell it, to promote it, to get it out there, to get the word out there, to be passionate about it and take it to the public. We have an event in November where 30,000 or more people come that are consumers that are not ranchers. And we cook also, so it brings them to our booth. But the husbands stand and wait till the vegetarian wives go away, and then they come and get our steak. I'm not kidding you. But no, we get it out there. We get the word out there. And traveling the state, we have so many questions that are asked of us. And what's super neat is that we are ranchers, and we can answer those questions firsthand. We don't have to turn and ask anybody. We can say, well, this is what we do.
Well, and our CEO of FarmHer and RanchHer earlier, Raquel, she mentioned something. She said women are better communicators. Not taking away from the men, but it's just facts, right? We all know that sitting up here. Much better communicators. And I think that any one of you could speak to this if you'd like. My mom and I were talking about this, especially as I was going down the road doing FarmHer and Janie's been going down the road doing RanchHer. sometimes we get lost in just doing the work and kind of we want to promote and advocate for our industry and our businesses, but we're not always the best at promoting or advocating for everybody in the industry as a whole, or understanding how other people do things, their practices, their methods. Again, you mentioned that's why NCBA is so great. You're learning from other ranchers, cattlemen on their different ways they do things. I guess go into that a little bit more and the importance of stepping outside the box, like Janie said, and really having to advocate for this brand and this business, because more and more we're going to have people not go back to their ranches and farms if they aren't aware. So can you speak to that a little bit more and the importance of advocating?
What scares me more than anything would be the generations coming up and how important it is that we keep their livelihood. I mean, they see it, but I talk with a lot of families, and the children, they're moving on to other things. They don't want to stay on the ranch. And just lucky, speaking for myself, we do have a daughter, and it is her interest, and she has one son. So, and he is the 7th generation. So hopefully we can keep those generations involved, the generations that are coming up. And my Texas daughter, she's also in a ranching family, and she has 3 children. And out in Texas, they're doing everything they can to teach them, and hopefully that they will carry on the family tradition of promoting beef, being cattle ranchers. And if not, then hopefully they have success no matter what they do. You want to support your children no matter what. But we see how important it is in our industry in Florida to maintain and keep the Florida cattle industry alive, and hopefully your children will also keep it as well.
We love to see the ranches stay in the family. And Rebecca, you mentioned that you get a lot of questions and that you guys are ready to answer those questions. Sarah, what are some of the biggest questions that people outside of the industry have for you guys, or maybe even some of the biggest challenges that ranchers are facing in 2024?
I think one of the biggest challenges that we in the cattle industry have is that people have no exposure to our way of life, which is the most wonderful, fabulous thing there is alive. There's nothing better than going out and smelling fresh mown alfalfa hay or grass or turned over soil. And
or cow pens. Smelling the cow pens.
And it is unbelievable the lack of knowledge, which I will admit that we as an industry have done a poor job in educating consumers. And that is the passion that I have, is taking my way of life, my one thing that I love more than anything, which is the cattle business and ranching and being away from town, and telling my story and explaining our way of life, which is very hard, because driving through Orlando and looking at all the cars and thinking, how in the heaven's name does anybody love driving an hour or an hour and a half to get wherever they're going? And then I turn around and say, those same people are sitting there thinking, how in the heaven's name can this woman think living half an hour away from Chick-fil-A and think that's a life? And I'm thinking, well, I understand that, but my way of life, I think it's much better.
It's definitely a life worth celebrating. And, you know, we're talking about this with RanchHer and FarmHer. That's what our goal is, to try to share this way of life, to get these amazing stories out there for people beyond our industry to get to see and experience why it is so wonderful. And it's so important that people like yourselves are up here supporting us with that too. So thank you guys.
Oh, thank you very much.
Can I touch on what Sarah just spoke about? It's really funny because on our drive up here, my husband and I, he's not a town fella, okay? He does not come to town. But as we were driving up here, he was just like so sad because of all the growth that's here in Orlando. And I know it is necessary, but it is sad because he was saying, oh, Deborah, you know, I remember when I was little, we had a bunch of cows over here in this pasture. And oh, Deborah, gosh, I used to go over there with Grandpa and move some cows over to this place. And I was just, it's just so sad because now it's just not there anymore. And it will never be there again.
Yeah.
And like, I just wanted to tell a little story here.
Go ahead.
Whenever my kids were little, we built a playpen above the cow pens, and we call it cow pens. Y'all call it corrals. Some places call it corrals. Yeah, but we call them cow pens. And so above the cow pens, he built a playpen to put the kids in while we were working down below. Now, this is where Celebration is today, which is Disney's Celebration. And so if you know just where to look when you're on Interstate 417, you're going to see a little bit of those playpens still stuck up in those scrub oaks. And it gives me goosebumps because I'm so happy that I have the memories of the land and my kids have the memories of the land. I'm getting goosebumps now. But it's so great that Deborah's children, Sarah's children, my children were able to see the land. And that has infected them with, no, we're not selling the family ranch, we're good. We're good to go right where we are. And so we know that we have to have a growth here, and we know that it's just the way of the world. But it certainly is nice to get behind your gate at night and say, whew, we don't have to put up with that guy that just ran 70 miles an hour by us, do we? Yeah.
That is a nice thing. I want to ask you about that then more because, again, the encouragement for younger generations to go back to the family ranch and family farm is great. What about the young individuals, younger generations that want to be first generation farmers and ranchers? What is your advice to them? What's your encouragement? I know sometimes the cost is a little scary for them, but I mean, I'm hearing more and more farms and ranches are leasing their land to younger producers so they can afford to do it. But you three being up here, multi-generational, what would your advice be for the first time generational farmer and rancher?
Turn to God and ask Him for guidance. Always turn to God. And we still do in our ranching families. And we've even had some younger people contact us, and probably you all have as well. How can I get this started? What can I do? And since I married into that family, I really didn't have a good answer. Maybe you all do. It's very difficult. I can tell you right now, it would be very difficult to start. So I just wish them well, and hopefully they can find the resources and the right people to guide them in that direction.
If you go to any county where you think you might be interested in doing it, the first thing to do is to go find elderly people whose kids do not want to stay in it or whatnot, and 9 times out of 10, they will work with those people, and they might come in and work part-time or whatnot, teach them the ropes and whatnot, which will make it easier. And it's if you really want to be in this industry, if there's a will, there's a way, and you can find someone that will help you get started.
Well, I want to speak to that too. We have an entity here in Florida with, in conjunction with the University of Florida, go Gators, it is the extension offices here, the county extension offices. They are a wealth of knowledge for anyone wanting to get in the business. They can contact producers and work with that young individuals. I mean, if they want to start out with a steer, if they want to start out with a hog, if they want to start out showing chickens and eggs, that's great. That shows they're interested in agriculture. And whatever area that they're interested in, Extension can help them. And they can get in touch with producers and everything else to do some internships and that type of a program. It's out there. If you really have a passion for it and you want to do it, come to the cattleman's office. They'll help you. They've got people there that will help you. They'll funnel you out to somebody to work. If you don't mind being on the fence crew, hey, it takes a fence,
Well, they may work it one day and
that's
say,
right.
Forget it.
That's right.
I don't want to do this after all.
Exactly. But it shows them what the ranching is about and what it also encompasses. Yeah. So I think if they use their extension offices too, that's a big help.
The resources are definitely there. And,
Yes.
the people in our industry, I feel like they're so giving and willing to teach young people. And I think it's because of all panels like this that are really encouraging people to join in ranching. I want to talk about Florida specifically. I'll be honest, I'm from Texas. It's very different from Florida. I don't know that much about Florida ranching. Why is it unique and different from the rest of the country?
You want to speak?
I don't think we have to hay as much as a lot of you folks out there. So we thank goodness we don't have to deal with that. I mean, we do a little bit of the winter feeding, but nothing compared to what you all deal with. And my husband has told me numerous times, he said, Deborah, I swear if I had cattle in Montana, they'd starve to death because I'm not getting out there and doing that. So probably something on that line, it makes it very unique, is our climate. And also the Brahmin influence that we have in our cattle, but I know Texas is famous for that too. So I think that might help a little bit.
Well, and Sarah, you've ranched all across the country. You've had to adapt many, many times.
Well, it's different in that you ranch year-round in Florida. In Colorado, we had big calving barns, and they were in the barn for maybe 3 or 4 days, and then they were kicked out, but close to the barn. Whereas Florida, you're ranching year-round. You have so many different things. You have hurricanes, and then you have come the spring where we have drought. And then you have June and July and August where you're just inundated with water. It's one of those things where you don't ranch just one type of property. Your property may have 6, 7, 8 different types of the way that your land is over the year, and you just have to learn how to deal with all of them. So, as Becky said, the extension has been very beneficial to the cattle ranchers because they are always putting on educational programs. And quite frankly, when we came from Colorado to Florida, that was my major source of education because, let's face it, Colorado is nothing like Florida. Well, now, we did have rattlesnakes, and they were in abundance in Colorado. And there's pretty many here, too.
One thing.
Well, my thought about it being different is I was in Texas for 5 years and had never really rode a horse to put out cubes for cattle. But that's what we did because it was snowing and it was ice and everything. So that was my first time to do that. And I didn't like it very much, just so you know. You know, and like Deborah says, we do put out hay. We do feed some in the winter and stuff, you know. But I think one of the major differences, or I think maybe y'all will agree with me, is the mechanics of it. And by that, we have really, really great cow dogs here. Whereas in Texas, they depend on their horses a lot, you know. But in Florida, our cow dog is our right hand, you know. And it's a dog that's bred, and it knows from the moment it hits the ground that it's a puppy what it's supposed to do. Sometimes. Well, okay, yeah. But most of the time, then how's that? Most of the time?
Most of the time.
But, you know, it's an amazing thing to watch a cow dog work. To send them ahead of a bunch of cows that are running off and just circle them, you know, and hold them up for you for when you get there, and then you're able to work them. And you call them back, of course, with the famous cow whip. That, you know, and so I wish y'all could have come to the ANCW. We had all the flora around for palmettos and cypress knees, and it would have been great. And that's, you know, that's Florida too. We use the dogs to, if cattle have gone in the swamp on us, to hide. And back in the day, real cracker cattle are small cattle, and they squatted. They really squatted behind palmetto bushes and stuff. So you send your dog in there because it's too close for your horse to go in. But anyway, I think the mechanics of it with the dog and all and the type of dog that we use.
Well, a good cow dog is worth about 5 cowboys.
That is exactly right.
Honestly, that's serious.
Yes.
Serious.
Sounds like your cattle out here can play the ultimate game of hide and seek. Which makes it tricky.
Back in the day. That was
back in the day. Okay. Well, maybe they were the leaders of that then. We're just learning from them. Before we wrap up here on a more personal note, whether it be the NCBA convention or growing up or in your life currently, what's a memory that comes to mind about this industry, this lifestyle, that really sticks out to you?
Oh, geez.
Oh my gosh, Kirby, there's so much. How much time do we have? it just shapes you into who you are. I don't know if I feel I see things different than some other people that haven't grown up in this industry. I'm so thankful for the land and so blessed with that. And this is another thing that we take care of our land, ranchers and farmers.
Environmentalists.
Right. We are
stewards of the land.
We are. And that's what I'm trying to say right there. We love our land. We love our animals. And it hurts whenever I read things that cattlemen and cattlewomen and farmers and ranchers and such, they're not very good to their animals. And my gosh, they get fed before we do, okay? And even in rodeoing, I'm going to touch out on side of that too. And too, Janie, those horses, and they will be well taken care of better than we are. I mean, even like the chiropractor, the horses. I mean, how long has it been since I've been to a chiropractor? A long time. But I mean, I could go on about this for days, as much as I've been blessed with being in the ranching industry and what this life has provided for our family and our, hopefully, generations.
I think the thing that really touches my heart the most is the fact that I had the ability to have and raise my children on a large ranch, and the memories that I have with the entire family of working together in the cow pens, riding horses on the weekend, fishing, boating, whatever we did, whether it ended up being a disaster or not. Even those were wonderful memories. And anyone that has never had that opportunity or their children exposed to that is missing something. And that is the reason they don't understand the passion that we have for our industry. And if I keep going, I'm going to cry.
I think we all are. Wow.
Gosh.
So good.
So I have to suck it up here, don't I? Okay.
Your turn.
All right. I think, like Deborah said, there's just so many growing up in the industry. But I think probably one of the most memorable times is riding with my daddy and all three of my kids. And they were, being the cow crew and just being behind a bunch of cattle and just watching the dogs work and knowing that my children, knew this and knew what it was like. And they were developing a love for the industry, and they were developing a love for God and developing a love for the land and family. And every time I had the three children with me and my daddy, it was a wonderful memory. Yes.
What a great life. I think that the three of you just summed it up about perfectly. Every one of us is getting emotional because I think that we all know firsthand how special it is to get to be a part of this industry and to live it. And the three of you are so inspirational to both Kirby and I and so many women and ranchers out there in the world. So thank you guys so much. This has been such a wonderful panel. Deborah, you're amazing. Sarah Childs, Rebecca Finley, thank you guys. And we just appreciate it.
Thank
Keep
you
on
so
advocating
much.
for
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you so much,
Janie.
Again, as we were getting emotional, though, nothing tests the type of person you are, like working with family, right? Riding alongside them, a lot of family meetings happen.
Well, what you say in the cow pens stays in the cow pens.
That's right. Well, thank you guys so much again. Like Janie said, we really appreciate you guys joining us. And, we have more from NCBA here while we're here. For Rancher and Farmer, I'm Kirby Schnorr, and this is Janie Johnson.
Thank you for watching this FarmHer and RanchHer special presentation from the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show.